doing what you're doing. So before we get too much down that rabbit's hole, though, there could be a random person that sees this, I don't know, today, next week, 2 years from now, who knows? They don't know much about Graham Nolan. Give us the elevator pitch of how on earth did you even end up in comics and doing this for a living and convincing the parents not to lose their mind. And you're like, I'm going to draw comic book. I'm going to draw picture books for a living, mom and dad.
Well, I was born an idiot, and I had no other skills, so I decided I would go in comics. I've always loved storytelling. Come from an Irish family. My dad was a great storyteller. They're raconteurs. So I was always drawn to movies, particularly monster movies as a kid. And by the 6th grade, my teacher brought in a stack of comic books for the kids to look at during recess. And that was the first. I had comics in and out of my house throughout the years, but that's the first time that they really hit me like, hey, these are still around. These are really cool. And that's when it lit me up. I was like, oh, wow, this is really great stuff. And so I started buying comics and decided from the time I was 12 years old that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write and illustrate comic books.
And you were, working for the big ones for a while. You've done all of it. You've done, everything from Iron Man to Batman. You've created characters, incredible story arcs, work with other giants and that kind of thing. When you reflect on it before it kind of gave you a turn and you kind of wanted to go away from that movement, is there someone that you met or something that you were like, especially when you're in that moment, you're like, man, this is really, because obviously like most of us, we're fans first. And it's
Sure.
like, oh man, give me one of those moments where you're like, yeah, I met this person or this happened. And I'm like, wow, I'm in this. This is cool. This is really cool.
Yeah. It was 1997. I was at San Diego Comic-Con and I was at the DC booth and I was signing, and my pal Chuck Dixon came up to me and told me that John Romita had just sat down at his table. And I just said, oh, wow. Because Romita was the first artist who I recognized his work. He was doing all the Spider-Man covers, and he was the art director at Marvel at the time, and he was inking other people's covers. And so, that really, he was like the first guy, the first influence on me. So I wanted to go see him. So I got up and I got in line with everybody else, and I waited and waited. I finally got up to him and introduced myself. And I said, Mr. Romita, my name is Graham Nolan. I'm a huge fan of your work. And he looked at me and he goes, the Graham Nolan, the artist? And I said, yes. And he goes, oh, I saw your Batman Spider-Man book. I really, really like that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, okay, I can retire now.
He knows who I am.
One of my
he
heroes.
knows my work. Wow.
He knows my work. He liked it. So yeah, that was one of those moments.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not an artist, so I don't have that skill set. But that is the greatest feeling, folks. I remember, so a funny version of that same thing happened for me. I did an interview with, he's a theater actor for a play. My wife and I were going to go, and she was very excited about it. So the problem was the way the website that I was writing this for was like, there's a video element, there's a interview, like a written version, all this stuff. So I couldn't put my name on everything. So I used my wife's name. Right. So I roll up, we see him walking in the side entrance, and I kind of like, hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And this is my wife, Laura, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, Laura, you're the one that wrote that great interview about me. And then that great write-up and review and blah, blah, blah. And she was like mortified, like she has no idea what he's talking about. And I'm like, I'm meeting a guy that I like and respect and enjoy. And I just, it was kind of like the same kind of like, wow, they like know who you are, but it's also like, I put myself. So I actually had both ends of that embarrassment and also like the awe of like, they know what you are, who you are.
Right? And I'm not playing